Hi.
Hi, and
Welcome to Gelbersessel,
yes,
your not so casual book club.
my name is Natalie. I am a student of fine arts in Vienna. I just finished my master's studies of educational sciences 2 months ago, and I'm currently working on my PhD and working with this beautiful lady.
Oh, thank you, Natalie. Hi, I'm Anna. I'm still a student of the master's degree for educational science, and I also study psychotherapy at the University of Vienna, and I'm a visual artist. Why are we here?
Why are we here? It all started last year when Anna and I wanted to create a book club where we would discuss popular books on a more critical level. And we did. We created gelbersessel, which means yellow chair in German. And with that, we created a podcast where we talked about those books in popular culture critically, but also in a light way. So we would enforce edutainment, education and entertainment. And we also created an Instagram page where we would engage with our audience about the topics that we talked about visually. And at the end of every book that we talked about, we had an open call on Instagram where we asked our audience to interact with us and with the episode that was going on. And Anna is going to tell you in a little bit more detail what that work looked like.
Exactly. Thank you, Natalie, for that beautiful explanation. So, the main goal was to develop a visual and creative communication platform around popular pieces of literature. Gelbersessel centers its gravity within a cycle on one literary source, and this process configurates in 3 stages. First, takes the publication of a new episode of the podcast its place on Gelbersessel, and in each episode, there is one book that will be deconstructed and analyzed by its effects, thoughts, and impressions we had during the reading process. And we discussed them on both a pop cultural as well as on an academic and critical level. We create a mixture between informative and inspirational content regarding one main topic that stood out during the reading process of the chosen book. And for instance, former topics that have been chosen have been women, discomfort, nature, happiness, or writing. And towards the end of any cycle, we engage our audience to refer to the selected theme and contents that have been demonstrated on our Instagram page and in the podcast. We engage to experiment creatively how they would define or identify themselves within them, and poems, photographs, performances, paintings, digital expressions, we don't set any creative limits.
Ultimately, we believe that reading together and being affected together holds the possibility for something new and unexpected and exciting, which
was also demonstrated in our research process.
Yes, which we're going to talk about now. So with my research approach to gelbersessel, I chose to focus on transcripts within social inquiry. Because when I transcribed all the episodes, I realized that I had different experiences recording it, hearing it, and reading it. I felt like a different person within those experiences. So I felt like this was a dissonance because I thought that transcripts could, at least to some degree, represent past events. At least that's how I kind of learned it in my academic training. I then looked to structuralist linguistics, where transcripts had the purpose of representing structures in language, and then I compared that with social inquiry, where transcripts had the purpose to represent social events. And I felt like that wasn't quite what I experienced. So I turned to new materialist theories like Jane Bennett's Vibrant Matter. And I asked, what does the transcript do rather than what it is? Because I felt like the transcript was very passive in these conventional humanist ways of doing social inquiry. So with that, I ended up characterizing transcripts within the research assemblage, which is a term by Fox and Aldred, as rhizomic and opaque. The word rhizome comes from Deleuze and Guattari, and the term opacity comes from Glissant. So what that means is that transcripts are not as transparent and representative of past events as an interpretive paradigm might assume. So the ontological, epistemological, and methodological assumptions within a new materialist social inquiry are different than the assumptions of a conventional humanist qualitative inquiry. And what that led to was me designing a method, a warm-up exercise for qualitative research to make the researcher aware of the opacity of transcripts or the research process in general. So in the self-interview, you give an interview and then you transcribe the interview that you gave. And with that, you should experience that your sense of self and unity of yourself is not as transparent as you might think. So what you read doesn't represent what you felt like talking, possibly. With that, I argue that this can be a way of creating more awareness of the importance of the assumptions we work with when doing inquiry, and that transcripts are not passive, but they are a very active process of the research, and we should be kind of sensitive to that.
So my approach in my thesis follows the acknowledgement that thoughts, memories, desires, and emotions have material effects, which leaves non-dynamic perspectives behind and turns towards affective flows within social inquiry. And I find there's a lack in finding theoretical perspectives that study visual or artistic components as an event and how they can lead to unexpected conversations or new perspectives. And especially in the digital era we are living in, it's necessary to invest our focus within qualitative research into the thing power, as Bennett calls it, of the material. And in my thesis, I wanted to identify the connections within gelbersessel and how all entities and their relation to one another affect or are affected by each other. And it was essential here to not only focus on individual bodies, things, or experiences, but rather display effective processes between entities. And territorial boundaries and patterns are here also key points of the analysis. The data corpus I've been using in my thesis is around the cycle nature at gelbersessel, which is heavily inspired by the novel and best-selling author Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, which is a story about a young girl left behind by both the immediate family and society, having to come of age alone. And during the following weeks, we talked about Mother Nature as a nurturer and its picture in Western societies, as well as how a girl becomes a woman if society doesn't deem her worthy of being human. And after that, we uploaded our open call, as previously already mentioned, and had over 16 artists from all around the world reaching out to us, submitting in total around 47 artworks. And these I methodologically analyzed around Gree's method around visual rhetoric in order to show how the effective processes between literature and art at gelbersessel are shaped out of a new materialist perspective. And with that, it is possible to show how literary themes a thing, and their effects around it can lead to unexpected and differentiated creative outcomes. And in that regard, my thesis offers contextual knowledge about the importance of entities of all kind, whether they are human or non-human, and their ever-changing relation to one another, but also offer to see the chance of a perspective that opens up to elements of the world we may not primarily look for when it comes to working with social inquiry. And the 21st century offered us in this uprising digital era a new spectrum of how we see ourselves, the world, but also life in general. And I think it's time to acknowledge in qualitative research processes that a distance from dualistic perspectives is necessary, and it's time to recognize that all entities, whether they are human things, values, or affects, are all on equal footing.
We hope that you liked our presentation and that you got inspired by our work, as we're hoping to get inspired by yours.
Thank you so much. See ya at Gelbersessel, your not so casual book club.
Cool.
Okay.